size
yeah.
bigger.
Yeah.
It's the same make and model, but just one size bigger.
Buy everything over.
Dale thinks everything will fit.
I just tell him when Cliff called
Think
me,
and know are two different.
10,000 to put a brand new motor in it.
Yeah. But
They
they,
still get a 20-year-old machine.
right. And Dale was gonna call the place wherever he deals with them to find out if the pieces will fit interchange. So he will know. And then, we have like, I think 38,000 in capital reserve for equipment.
He's got some too.
Yeah, 37.
Yeah, so,
keep forgetting that.
The what? Oh, the
Law school.
look at it.
I top.
I go sit in Jim's seat at TJ. You guys.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
Dennis coming?
I'm assuming. Running late. Yes.
Lindsay's coming too, right, girls? Oh, because we said we're recessing till 6 o'clock, I will call the Board of Selectmen meeting back to order. Now that it is 6 o'clock, and here comes Mr. Murphy, so we're just waiting on one more person before we actually get started. I'd rather wait till everybody was here so we don't have to repeat anything.
oh, they were gonna call me, or let Carrie know actually. So we can move that corner. Okay. But they made it over to the corner.
All right. Now that I believe everybody is here, we weren't expecting anybody else, right, Dennis? You got yourself, Henry, the school board, select board, town and school clerk. Okay, so I will give the mic to whoever wants to speak first on.
So I guess what we're here to do is we're here to figure out how we're going to move forward with the two deliberative sessions. Do I have that correct? Okay. So Governor's Order 83, which came out Friday at 2:30, and I won't repeat the language I used when I opened it up. I did repeat it to Ben today on the phone. Part of that order says, notwithstanding to any law contrary for calendar year 2021, where concerns exist conducting the annual meeting and election during COVID-19 health emergency, the governing body of a town, school district, village district, in consultation with the moderator and the clerk, may postpone the official ballot voting to the second Tuesday in April, May, June, or July. The governing body may also postpone the business or deliberative session of the annual meeting to one or more dates later in 2021. The prohibition in RSA 40 on delaying the deliberative sessions for more than 72 hours from requirements, and the election scheduled for Tuesday 2 weeks following the original date shall not apply. So from my understanding, last night the school board voted to postpone their deliberative session, which was scheduled for Saturday. I did have a conversation with Bud Fitch, who is the secretary for the, and I apologize for turning my back to somebody. I'm trying to make sure everybody can see and hear me. At 8:30 this morning, Town Moderator Dennis Murphy and I had a conversation with Bud Fitch, who is the attorney at the Secretary of State's office. He did confirm that previous statutes, because the governor's orders were kind of outed, were kind of not withstanding. In the past, the moderators, once the dates had been set, the moderator would have the authority to postpone that. And so one thing that didn't happen last night, if my understanding, one thing Bud did make clear to everybody, that it had to be a date, it couldn't be just postponed till sometime in May. It had to be postponed to a date certain. And I did, at 10:30 this morning, myself and the two moderators, the school district moderator and the town moderator, met again with the chairman of the school board on the phone line. We did have a speakerphone, so everybody was able to hear the call. And at my urging to the school board, they were to have an emergency meeting tonight to figure out a date certain. So with that said, we're here to negotiate, to figure out when the deliberative sessions are going to be. If I had been giving advice the advice I gave to both moderators was, and I did say this to Lindsay, I did say this to Ben on the phone today, that would have been to continue to move forward with our two deliberative sessions and our voting second Tuesday in March. Because I have concerns, and I expressed them to Ben, and I did express them to Lindsay. I have concerns about the governance of both organizations, and my job as the clerk is to make sure that proper governance is done. So here we are, and I've laid that all out. I don't know what the dates. I looked at my calendar and came up with some dates that could potentially be used if we do move forward with a postponement. I think it's important that the two boards work together to determine. I think it's important. I expressed this to Ben and I expressed this to Lindsay on the phone this morning, that I think it's important that that the two meetings stay coupled together, and that we have one election at the end, because we have an obligation to the taxpayers to make sure we use their money equitably, and I think it's important that we not ask our residents to come out and vote twice. Those are my thoughts. And at this point, I will sit down and shut up and let somebody else do the talking for a while.
Thank you, Jim.
Before I turn over to Lindsay, so I'm open to questions. I apologize for not offering that opportunity.
Does anybody have any questions for Jim right now?
The only question I have is, could you explain to the board and to the audience, and I'm not sure if you have it in front of you or not, and I apologize if you don't.
Yeah.
But there's certain dates, am I correct, that we need to have timeline in between the deliberative and the vote in?
Those are not so much. Those, in my belief, are not so much statutory dates as they are dates for us to be able to get things done. So one of the things is that if we have, and I'll throw out the dates that I looked at, and again, it may not coincide with what the school board came up with, but again, I believe the school board chairman was given the authority to negotiate dates, so we have some running room. So what I'm throwing out is potentially having the school district meeting on Saturday, the 3rd of April, the town on 4/10, and then our final election on 5/11/2021. That gives us an opportunity to amend, if there's any amendments at the deliberative sessions, to get those amendments done. So what would happen is if there's an amendment at the school district meeting, those amendments are given to the SAU office. They make the changes to their warrant. They send it to me, which I create the ballot from.
What were your dates again, Jim?
4/3 for the school district meeting, and 4/10 with our final election on 5/11, which is the second Tuesday of May.
Okay.
That gives the same thing with the town. So that would give me a week before the town to get the school district's ballot off to off to LHS to create our ballot, to create the programming, and then be able to get the proofs back, to get them signed off on, and it gives us about 4 weeks, almost 5 weeks to get it printed. I realized with the pandemic going on that we are not going to be able to print the 100, 200 absentee ballots that I have printed for a long time. I realized that we're probably going to have to print 500 absentee ballots to be able to send out, because I believe people have two things. People understand the ease of absentee balloting at this point after the primary and the general election last year, and I believe that our older population, will want to vote safely. And so I'm throwing out those dates for discussion. The other part of picking the 5/11 date is also, once we have the voting, once we have the results, there is stuff that has to happen. The finance office has to be able. We have to get things submitted to the DRA. Things have to be inputted in both sets of softwares at the SAU, I believe, for tracking of the new approved expenditures, and we have to be able to do that on the town. Do I understand that from Amy correctly, Carrie?
Yes, and close out fiscal year, which is in
Right.
June, so that's a lot going on for a bunch of us to handle all
Right.
in a 3-week period if we were to move voting in June.
Right.
It's impossible.
Yeah, closing up the tax collector's office takes almost an entire day to do that, because we have to be ready. We have to close it out. We have to balance the MS-61, and then we have to be ready to accept payments on July 1st because our tax bills should be and will be out that day. So that's one of the reasons that I'm proposing these dates to do that. But I think the important thing is that the meetings stay coupled, and that we move together in unity to work together for the benefit of the taxpayers and the voters. One question was asked of me by Bud Fitch today, that was there any school district warrant that turned over the voting to the town? And I don't believe there is any. I believe what we have done for the last 20-something plus years is a joint agreement of cooperation. Because I am the school district clerk, Marge Austin was the school district clerk, that has been a seamless operation. Henry Parkhurst is the school district moderator, Dennis Murphy, and then previously Ken Harvey as the town moderator worked together to make sure that the elections went off. Both had their statutory responsibilities, and that's how we operated. Now that I said all that crap, does anybody else have any more questions?
Jim,
Yeah.
does that give you enough time, if those dates are agreed upon by whomever, possible snow days?
Well, I'm hoping in April. I'm hoping in April and May we won't have any. But
Well, you're talking first part of April.
right, we potentially could have one.
Yeah.
At this point, I don't have a good answer. My answer is I didn't take into consideration. The other piece of this is I threw out these dates. Is COVID is worse. We've had we've not had a super cold winter or super snowy winter. If COVID is absolutely worse, we have the potential of holding both meetings outdoors. I mean, is that my favorite option? It is not my favorite option. Do you know how much crap I have and how much papers I have? If it's a windy day, my stuff's going to be all over the place. So I'm trying to have a little levity here. So.
Well, that and trying to plan an outdoor event in New England any time of the year is
Right.
not a great idea.
Jack, we could potentially have snow. We've had snow at the end of April.
Right.
And I don't dispute that.
I was just wondering if it gave you enough time, that's all. If they
if
needed to be moved ahead.
Yeah, if these dates went off and we did select the 5/11 2021 option as our election date for both entities, those dates give me enough time, and I believe they will give the school board enough time to do what they need to do, and I believe it will give our finance office enough time to do what they need to do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you,
So,
Jim.
That's all I have.
Thank you, and thank you for your work, too.
I have a couple points here. One, it does not change the filing for your candidacy for office. That ends tomorrow at 5 o'clock, irregardless when we postpone to. And the other thing is, back in 1977, we had a snowstorm. We had 4 inches that crippled the whole Northeast. And so we can, from there, we can always postpone for our 2 weeks. The moderators can do that. So if we have the 11th and there's a snowstorm, we can postpone our elections for 2 weeks out, like we did back 3 years ago when we had that snowstorm in March. So we have that capability. But those are the two things filing is still 5 o'clock tomorrow. That's it.
I was gonna actually bring that up and ask if I'd be correct in saying that no other dates change.
No
in
other
the
dates have
timeline.
changed.
The only dates that are gonna change would be the dates of town meeting.
That's correct. In the snowstorm part of it, the school moderator and myself, in conjunction with our boards, will be up to the moderators to change those dates.
Right. Yep.
And if we do make a change, as opposed to the filing period tomorrow, as the clerk of both entities, I will notify all of the candidates in writing what the decision of both boards would be, so they will have something from me in writing about when the final date of the election is.
Yep.
That also
I think that's important.
Yeah.
That also lengthens the campaign periods. Thank you.
Well, no, you can come on up, Lindsay. I was just going to say, like Gloria stated earlier, if nothing else, moving it to closer to May will make it easier to put signs in the ground.
Might not be frozen. I just wanted to provide a brief update from what happened at the emergency meeting that we did call today at 5:30. We wanted to come into this meeting with some dates, and we had a due diligence per the order to pick a date immediately, and we wanted to rectify that we hadn't done that last night. So we did choose, actually, May 11th for a couple of reasons. Most importantly, that still gives the school district an opportunity for all of our teacher contracts and to provide letter of assurance. As we start to get into June, that starts to get a little bit late, and we could inadvertently lose some staff who wasn't quite sure what was going to happen. So May 11th is a good day. We had also actually noted April 10th to be a good day for a deliberative, and this is why. The weekend of April 3rd is Easter. April 4th is actually Easter. So we thought that we would try to avoid a major holiday for people. That being said, we're still very interested in ensuring that we have some unity in the voting day. So I did come into the meeting with some flexibility. I wonder if the select board would like to think about potentially holding 2 deliberatives on Saturday the 10th and doing the school and the town one day and having it done. So I'd like to think about that.
I'm not against that idea. My only fear would be if we schedule one for 8 o'clock, one for noon, and the 8 o'clock one's not done in time. I mean, the other one's already posted to start at noon, so we can't really start it late.
No, I absolutely agree that is a concern.
But I also don't want to post one for 8 in the morning and one for 4 in the afternoon and have it an entire day event.
Why not? We could barbecue in the middle. We could have an event down at the out. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, let me think about this. So if we started at 9, let's see, our longest deliberative to date was last year, correct?
Yep.
And that one was 5 hours? Right around 5 hours? I think we've hopefully moved beyond that particular time in our history where
I don't foresee a 5-hour long
right.
meeting.
So,
again.
I mean, thinking of offering a nice window of opportunity, maybe a max of 3 or 4 hours with one meeting at 9 and one meeting at 1. We could also, I don't know what the town's usual meeting length is. I think it's typically a little bit shorter, but if the town, wants to go first, you could go at 9, and perhaps you're even done a little bit earlier, and 1 o'clock is a really good time.
It really depends on if there's any contentious warrant articles. I don't believe this year there really are, but in the years past, we've been getting done sometime around noon, 1 o'clock.
Right, and you usually start at 9?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I remember a couple of years we decided not to take the lunch break because we only had a couple of articles left to do, and it didn't make sense to break for lunch.
Yeah.
when we could get it all done. So,
So I'm open to some brainstorming
I mean,
about that.
I'm not opposed to that idea. How's the board feel?
Not opposed to that idea.
And your board obviously was okay with.
My board sent me in with authorization to be as accommodating as we could with our dates and move forward safely. So we had the 10th. If we all stick with the 10th, then we haven't changed anything on our end. We
Right.
did not set a time. So I'll let you
I think
discuss.
it's important, Lindsay, I think it's important that the town and the school work together for the best interest of the town. I don't care, you might not like me, and I might not like you, but we got to think of the town. That's what we're dealing with, and I think it's very important for the two boards to work together.
I agree wholeheartedly, which is why on Monday,
Yeah.
when I first thought about the fact that we might postpone, I had reached out to Ben. I wanted him to be aware that that conversation was going to be happening at the school board level. That's why I reached out to the town moderator, who kept in the loop about the activities of where we were going, and we still want to work together to have a joint voting day, because we do think that is in the best interest of our citizens as well. But we really want to keep our citizens safe. And I said yesterday, and I'll say again, when even one person says that they feel unsafe in a voting environment, we are not hearing all of our citizens.
Thank you. Lindsay, excuse me,
I'm just going to stay here for a minute.
what was that?
I'm just going to stay here. Go ahead.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up when you said, we have one citizen that doesn't feel safe. And I know this question's been brought up between this board and I'm sure on your board, what's going to happen in May if we have the same results? Tonight's paper, Dennis had spoke about it last night. Tonight's King Sentinel, there's 26 states with the new strain of this virus from the UK. And tonight's news, the strain from Africa has been found in several states. So you're saying one person won't feel safe. Well, who's going to be that one person to decide in May that it's not safe?
I think that that's a very, very valid point as well, Jack. We did indeed discuss that at the school board level. And my opinion to that is I have never, and I don't think anybody in this room has ever, navigated the type of environment, the global pandemic that we're currently in. And so we can only make the best decisions that we can make with the information we have right now, and then, hope and pray and whatever it is you do to make it through, that when that time comes, we'll be able to continue as we usually would. And, we're making a decision now, and I'm a firm believer that as information changes and you gather new intel or you speak to different people, that so can the process. So if we come into a time frame in May, we know we have to get this done. So we'll take the information at that point, and I can't say that I would say the same thing. At that point I could say, we've postponed, we've come to as safe as a point as we could, we need to press forward. But for the here and now, that is my position.
I think that.
I'm sorry. I was still.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going over what the moderator had addressed last night. And my second question before Gloria gets in. the school board met tonight, and was the and I know that the governor's order stated that the governing body had the right to postpone and set a date. But that being said, was the school moderator invited to your meeting tonight, and was any of his concerns or whatever brought forth and taken into the consideration of the vote that you cast tonight?
So today, I spoke with both the moderators and the town clerk at 10:30. I advised our moderator that we would be meeting at 5:30. I asked if there was any questions. I did not receive any feedback. So, I mean, communication goes both ways. And so if there's a question or concern that needs to be raised to me, the only way that I know it's a question or concern is if it's raised to me.
Thank you, Jack. So, my apologies. I think the biggest thing we're trying to accomplish now is the deliberative being outdoors, because, at least with the election, anybody who doesn't feel comfortable can still file an absentee ballot.
Right.
The thing is that we're really trying to focus on now is the deliberative, where people come together. So I think, these dates April should be reasonably better than February.
And I don't know about anybody else, but I reviewed at length the potential drive-through, deliberative drive-through voting option, and it just seemed like there was all sorts of room for error, and it just didn't seem like the best way to facilitate deliberative or voting, which is why we didn't have that extensive conversation at the school board level.
I didn't even entertain the thought of drive-through voting or anything, mostly because everything it would take to do it, neither the town nor the school own. So the cost that would go along with doing that would be phenomenal. I do have a quick question for Jim. I'm gonna have more for you, Lindsay, so you don't have to go far. Jim, is it a problem? Would it be an issue for anything that you have to do or anything if both deliberatives are held the same day?
I have to be honest, that is not my favorite option. For what I have to do to take the minutes of 2 meetings back to back, usually by the end of our meeting, I am totally wiped out. But if this is what we have to do to get through, I will suck it up and I will be there and I will do the job for both entities.
Thank you.
Like I said, that is not my favorite option. But if this is what we can come to, we will make it happen.
Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure that's why we're having this meeting with everybody that's going to be involved in the meeting. I want to make sure everybody's giving their input and feeling the same way on everything. Did you have something else with that, Dennis?
Being outdoors, probably in the grass. If there's rain, we don't have a tent. That means we could postpone for 72 hours. There's a timeline that we can do that and reconvene. But that field's going to get wet. I don't know, it's going to get real messy, unless you do got a tent and unless you do have, I don't know. This is, obviously we're in uncharted territory, and also my concern of having 2 deliberative sessions on the same day, probably to get out, I would be looking at probably starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, which is way early, and it's going to be cold in April. And then the next one probably start, because we have to give everybody a break so they can go home and get coffee or whatever, because we won't be providing that like we have in the years past by the Grange. Thank you, Grange. I really appreciate it, for all that coffee and stuff that they do have, but not the donuts, but that's another story. But we have to, we got to do something, and
Right.
and that would be an all day thing. And if the weather is somewhat cold or anything else in April, and it could be snow on the ground.
Right.
So I don't know. I have concerns, and I also have concern. My biggest concern right now is the African strain. I hear that at the hospital. and that's where I work, so, you know, I'll do what you guys want me to do, and I'm sure Henry will too.
Okay, thank you.
I just have something for you.
Okay.
Two things. The school did some quick checking and confirmed there's some additional CARES money coming to schools for just such as these needs, and so we might have an opportunity to rent a tent if we needed to, and we would absolutely prefer to we would be probably on our back parking lot so that we would be on a solid surface and not grass. Although those other concerns are legit, we still have some availability to make outside work with some protection for us.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring up, no matter what, after we make a decision tonight, I was going to bring up that we need to work on just whether we end up needing it or not. It would be nice to have the tent set up.
Yep.
That way, even if
For
it does
sun,
turn out to be a beautiful day,
or
not
just-
everybody's sitting out in the sun.
And then the only other thing is, I know that our voting day has to be set in stone right now, but I'm just wondering, we've bounced around some thoughts about doing it all day, and certainly if we have the option to wait, to give people just a chance to think that through, will we do it all day? Will we do it on a holiday weekend? I'm not sure, but if it was the will of your board that you wanted to think about that, we certainly could.
How's the rest of this board feel about an all-day event with both of them the same day?
I'd be in favor of it.
I'm fine with either scenario.
What happens if one of the deliberates isn't over?
At the end of the day, you expect me to say something like that.
Well, I was hoping to
keep
hear
looking.
from everybody.
But at the end of the day, I agree with the two moderators that what they posted last night, you know, meetings have been posted, and I mean, we're past that now because the school has already voted to postpone it. What was that vote tonight? Anyway, what was the count on the vote tonight for the date?
For the date, it was 4-1.
4-1. I think it's a lot to ask for the volunteers to do an all-day session. I know how much work Jim and Danielle put in, and Carrie.
Yeah. Well, and that's
Really, this won't be the person that all-day session affects is me. Because I am the school district clerk and the town clerk.
well.
As I said, it's not my favorite option, but I appreciate your considering me, but I will make it happen to do what we need to do to get this all done.
Yeah.
If the town, if this, so if the town was at noon or whatever, with an hour's break, that would be helpful. But Carrie and the town officials wouldn't have to come in until 11:30ish to get set up if the town was on the second part of the day.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I do like the idea of getting it all just said and done in one day, but at the same time, I'm kind of leaning more towards 2 different days to split it up for not only the people working and the employees that have to work it for both halves or one half or the other, but the residents having to sit out there, even getting an hour lunch, it could still turn into an 8-hour day between both deliberatives. And that's a long time for people to sit out. So I'm personally leaning a little bit more towards 2 different days.
Also, the other 2 people to be working all day would be the 2 moderators, because each one is the other one's deputy. And that's a lot.
Well, and the supervisors of the checklist would
Supervisor
have to be there.
checklist would have to be there for both sessions.
Right.
And those ladies, and I'm not trying to be, they're not 25 anymore,
Right.
unfortunately.
Well, and I'm thinking even for the four that I've been a selectman as part of, even after a 4 or 5 hour day, as soon as we're done, it definitely feels good to get out of here, and it feels like it's already been a long day after 4 or 5 hours. So,
I would maybe suggest that, it's something a little bit out of the ordinary. Maybe one be on Sunday starting at noon. And that means that people who do go to church can go to church and be at the session at noontime. That would be the...
I'd prefer to stay away from Sundays.
No.
but-
Well, I do too.
Right.
And
I think if we stay with, personally, I'm feeling like if we stay with Saturdays, those always work pretty good for everybody.
the other thing that we could do is one meets on Saturday. We both meet on Saturday, but instead of having the second session, that moderator postpones with a vote, postpones it for a later date,
Yeah.
in keeping with the RSAs.
I'd rather just keep things as clean and neat and
I do
as
too,
possible.
but you're going to run into a crunch.
Dennis, my reason for going on one day is because of the help. The amount of work that these guys have to put into setting this all up, taking it down, setting it all back up again is unreal. I mean, I'm in favor of doing it any way the town wants to do it, and I'll be more than happy to do my share, whatever we got to do. But I'm trying to think of the best route for you guys to go. Whether we get it in one day or 2 days.
There's nothing easy, and that doesn't even include we're going to have to get porta potties.
I know.
There's a whole bunch of logistics to do an outdoor meeting.
That's what I'm trying to say. Is
I'm not. I think you're playing with fire the first Saturday of April. I like you said, Dennis. It's still going to be cold. What's the average temperature? Average low, Jane. 28 degrees. No.
What's the average high?
And I want to know that you guys, I appreciate you guys' amount of work you guys do. That's why I was looking out. I thought I was looking out for the best interest for you guys
Now-
too.
Well, if it's set up inside, I mean, then
If we have a
it could
tent,
stay up.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we set it up inside, that's one thing, but if we're doing it outside, and then you get the residents, and a lot of them are not 25 anymore either.
Yeah.
For all the purposes of this meeting here tonight, we don't need to actually work out whether it's going to be inside, outside, a white tent, a black tent, a green tent, none of that. We just need to set dates, times, and that's all we
Exactly,
need to
but
worry
Well,
about tonight.
Hold on, Ben. No, I disagree. The whole point of moving on because people didn't feel safe. So inside, outside, it was a discussion from Gloria last night. That's the reason she wanted to move it into May, because she wanted to be outside to make people feel safe. So that is point of this discussion.
The logistics is one thing, but we have to consider all the ramifications of doing that, and not how we're going to do it, but just that we need it, because of capacity and whatever, and realizing that the ground can still be April, and I don't know where we're going to do it, what parking lot, if we can do it in a parking lot or whatever, but it's going to be, it's going to be up to you guys. You guys are on the pointy end of this stick.
Well, I still feel confident, no matter which way it goes, of doing it up at the school. They have a bigger building, they have a bigger parking lot, they have a bigger field. Inside, outside, it's just more accommodating space-wise. And the school's been gracious enough to allow the town's deliberative and everything to happen up there again. And I feel like for tonight we need to just concentrate on setting dates and times, and we can work out everything else after. And honestly, really, it's up to the moderators and the town and school moderator and the town and school clerk to work out the logistics of what's happening. So I feel like I mean, the school has picked the 10th, April 10th. I do agree that trying to have it the same weekend as Easter might be difficult for some people. There are families that do have big to-dos for Easter weekend. So I would be fine with doing the towns the week after, same as it's scheduled now, the 17th, and then doing our elections on May 11th.
So when the school would have theirs and when then?
What's that?
The school would have theirs when? What day?
April 10th,
April 10th.
and
Well, in that's gonna
and
run
the
into Easter.
towns, I'm proposing the towns be April 17th, and then elections be May 11th. Does that give time for postings and stuff? The 17th to the 11th is less than 30 days. I don't know what the posting time limit is.
Is that good for the school, Lindsay?
Huh?
That only gives me very little time to get all of the ballots ready. I'm not trying to throw.
No, it's fine. That's why I'm asking the question before I actually make a motion.
I'm not sure I can do it in 3 weeks, get it done in 3 weeks.
Okay, so,
We're having it on a regular schedule. The school would have gone next week, and then the town would give, that would have given me almost a month
right.
to get it done.
So if we stay with Jim's recommendation of April 3rd and April 10th, and then May 11th, how does the board feel about April 3rd and May 11th?
I'm fine with Jim's proposal, and yes, it may be Easter weekend, but I don't see anybody having big, huge parties because of COVID. Most holidays have been very subdued anyway the last few months, so
Yeah.
I don't really see that being an issue.
I don't see it being an
It's
issue.
a
I just
Saturday
hate,
as well. Easter's
Right.
on a Sunday.
yeah. No, I get that.
And I'd like to say, I think it's glorious, the fact that I don't see a lot of people traveling for Easter.
I'm certainly not.
Well, I didn't really see a lot of people traveling for Christmas or New Year's either, but
Exactly.
I did see a lot of extra travel that I didn't expect to see.
And another consideration, if we do have it the following or whatever, on the next weekend, there is the problem of absentee ballots. There are going to be a lot of them, and the pre-processing of absentee ballots and a whole bunch of other stuff. So going later, I don't think is in the best interest of the town.
Yeah. Jim, I know you were mentioning absentee ballots earlier. Do you see that that's just for voting day, not for deliberative? He just needs time to print everything.
Well, that is for deliberative, because we need the results, be able to print them on the ballot, get them checked. LHS has to do it, and then then we have to do the ballot tests. There's a lot of other stuff going on in the background that no one ever sees.
Right. And I think that's what Jim was starting to touch on earlier. Do you see an issue? Do you see a problem with absentee ballots?
So how the process works, and I'm sure Ben or Henry are aware of this, is when I send in the order for ballots, the absentee ballots always come first before the regular ballots. So I would have those, and they turn those around very quickly. So I believe that I can have those within a week to a week and a half of being able to of submitting my order, so I can send out what requests I have. And so I think that we will be on good firm footing with that. Did I answer your question?
Yep.
I'm sorry, Ben, I didn't hear.
One of the other concerns that I have with the absentee ballot part of it right now is the turnaround time We have residents that are snowbirds. They go to other places, especially Florida. They come back. The USPS, unfortunately, has been very, very slow. They've closed so many offices and sorting machines. It takes, anybody's familiar with trying to get a piece of mail. I was supposed to have a piece of mail a week ago, and it didn't come in until just the other day. So that is a concern for me, and the ballots.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a concern, but unfortunately, that's something that's out of our control.
I know, that's out of our rank, but we got to think about it.
Right.
I'd rather, probably do the April 3rd,
Right.
even though I don't like it as much, but that's all
Yeah.
right. It's even colder.
Are you opening this up for public comment, or is it just for elected?
If anybody has a question concerning this, as long as they're not repetitive questions.
Brendan Hubbard, 66 Woodard Avenue. I don't know how much the tent costs to rent it for 2 different days, but a tent that big, I can't imagine would be that cheap. So that would be my only objection to having it 2 different days outside.
Right.
Food for thought.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Natalie Cavedo. 112 Ashwellet Street. I just wanted to say I heard a lot right now. It seems like the board and the school board have come to a conclusion on what's best for the town, just to keep, the history of keeping voting around the same time. So it's, easy for the residents to remember. We're just moving a date. It's not rocket science. COVID's here. It's not going to go away anytime soon. People will be able to meet outside now. Like Dennis said, if there's a snowstorm or it's too cold, it could be postponed 72 hours. I also think that I had a lot to say, but I think we're just talking in circles right now, and that we should just vote.
I was just trying to allow for enough time that everybody involved had their chance to have some input before we actually set a date in stone. I didn't want to have to come back and revisit and reinvent the wheel again. That being said, I believe so.
But the one thing I would like to be able to put in my letter, if there's no objections, I don't think we need to have campaign signs from starting the day after the filing period closes until the second Tuesday in May. I would like the authority and the permission from both boards to put something in my letter, something that even though we have a pause on the election, we're also having a pause on the campaign.
I'm
Do you understand what I'm saying?
fine with that. And honestly,
Governor Sununu still has signs over on the common.
Yeah.
The election has been over for months.
honestly,
And I just haven't stopped wanting to get out of my car and pick them up.
Oh, yeah.
doing my own campaigns, I didn't want to get started any earlier than I had to myself. So,
Does what I'm proposing make sense?
Yeah,
to everybody?
absolutely.
yeah, I mean, most of the time, people don't start putting campaign signs out until after deliberative.
Anyway,
Right, but
right.
So I think
I'm just afraid with this extension and this pause on the whole thing, that we may have people thinking they want to get a jump start on campaigning, and I
Right.
hate to see campaign signs all the way from February until May all over town.
I'd rather wait until the grounds get softer.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm just throwing that.
Yeah.
I agree,
Yeah,
totally.
no, that's not a bad idea.
And make it a suggestion rather than.
Yeah,
I was going to say that you can't limit, because we postponed one part of it, all the other things still hold in place. So,
right. I mean, it would just be a friendly recommendation to people
Exactly.
to
And I
please,
would, that's the one other thing I would do, say, friend, listen.
recommendation
But
due
we can't
to
tell them you can't have your signs up.
due to
because
the
we
postponement of the
Yeah.
meetings and due to the fact that snowplows could take your signs down between now and then.
And if they're illegal, the town moderator and school moderator are going to have them removed.
Yep.
Yes.
You guys are all set, right? Okay. Did you guys choose a time for the 10th? Or did you leave that open?
I think that we assumed we would do 9 a.m. because that's what we were posted for.
Yeah, yeah. And I'd like to use the same time period, just so it's not confusing to people. Remember which week they're supposed to be where at 9 versus 8. And my motion is going to be to hold the town deliberative on April 3rd at 9 o'clock at the school, and have all the elections on May 11th, the second Tuesday of May.
I'll second that.
So that's the
That's-
town on the 3rd and the school on the 10th, right?
The school voted for the 10th,
Right,
yeah,
so we're flip-flopping them, basically, from what we had previously scheduled.
for timeline
Yeah.
reasons, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What time's voting usually start? Polls open at 7 or 8?
8.
8. Okay, I just wanted that out there in Facebook world.
Nope.
No, 8 to 7 works good on May 11th. So that's my motion.
Channy's already seconded.
Shanny seconded.
Yep.
Any other discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 3-1. So, yeah, I think that's all we need to do. The school just needs to officially set their time, but you got time to do that. You've already set the date. So I think that's it, right?
Second.
Yeah. No, thank you guys for your help. I know it's definitely been frustrating for everybody. Last minute decisions are always hard. But the motion was made for adjournment and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Thank you, everybody.